memorable. We are so excited to have this presentation in front of you guys. And today our topic is about craft hands company, and we will give the current and future ERM framework and provide our suggestion for the company, and also do the gap analysis for this company. And first of all, let me do the instruction for this company. The Craft Hands Company is American food provide company that which founded in 2015 by merge of the Craft and Hands. This company also operated food and beverage business in North America and global world. And we do have some numbers for this company. They are the fifth largest food and beverage company in our world, and the third largest in North America. So we can see this company are really successful in their industry area. So after that, we will do the current ERM framework analysis. As we mentioned in the first case assignment that the company used the COSO framework for their risk management. This framework identified their practice, politics, requirements, and commitment. And there are four main parts for this framework. They are the strategic, operational, reporting, and compliance. This company also uses these four main parts to their each level of their risk management, from the entry level to the highest management level. And we can see that this company followed the COSO framework and narrowed down their risk limits, and they do have some relative good performance, like this strong points, like the high quantity of their products, their work protections, and their workforce diversity, and they do have the supply chain transparency in their areas. However, we also can see they do have some weak points during their risk management. The first one and the most important one is we think there limits application of risk quantification and decision making. And the second one is we think the company don't have the standard risk categorization and definition tool. Like as we mentioned, like this firm operates food and beverage to the world. So compared to other industry, this company is relatively easy to identify their risk by source. So they can just, like the raw material products have the closely relationship with their profit. So they can just identify the risk just by source. The second one is the risk appetite and risk limits are too general stated. Our group think their risk limits are really general and don't have a lot of impact to their risk management. So it's just too general stated. Besides this, we also think the company very limited risk quantification process. For example, they do have the individual risk exposure, but they don't use this individual exposure to integrate it to the enterprise-wide risk exposure. So we will think about how to fix these problems, and we will provide the future statement ERM framework to the company. We want to use the value-based ERM framework for the company because it can satisfy the 10K criteria for the company. And we also combine the nationwide risk management circle for the company. So the first part is the risk identification and definition. In the first part, and we want to suggest the company to identify their risk by source, just as I mentioned in the last part, and to choose product distribution channels and markets in the strategic risk area, and they can help the company to identify their risks. The second part is quantitative risk assessment. They can provide a survey to their internal staffs and also for external consulting companies. And they can high level the quantificate scoring for each potential key risk limits and key risk likelihood of severity and occurrence. That means the company should build a really good relationship with the external risk consulting firm, and also build an intensive system in their internal risk management. The third one is emerging risk identification. We also mentioned this in our first case assessment. Like the company are facing the rapidly development on the e-commercial. That means this area is really new for the company. So we think the private hands company should environmental scan for their annual risks. The second part is about risk quantification. In this part, we do have the two levels. The first level is the individual, and the second level is enterprise level. In the individual level, we will do the analysis first. We want to know the frequency and severity of their risk, because the frequency can tell us how often the management would expect to have this risk. And the severity will tell us how big the impact of this risk to our company. So after that, we will do the individual risk exposure. We will analyze the impact of these events on the key metrics. What is metrics? Key metrics for the company. It can be the net revenue or the economic capital or some value of the company. There are also all of them are the key metrics for the company. After that, we will do the stress testing. Stress testing means we will setting up the base scenario and show impact of each scenarios on the baseline and key metrics. So after that, we will get individual risk exposure. After that, we will integrate this individual risk exposure to the enterprise-wide risk exposure. And this exposure can help us to do the decision making in the next part. So our last part of the future state ERM framework is decision making. In this part, we want to emphasize two areas. The first one is mitigation plan, and the second one is monitoring. The mitigation plan means we will use the enterprise-wide risk exposure to design our mitigation plan, like change our policies, hedging, reinsurance, and enhance internal controls. And all of them can just help us to limit our risk. And the second part is monitoring. For this part, it can support our mitigation plan, and it will combine a lot of areas like strategic, operational, and financial activities. All of them can just help the company to do the risk management and help the company to narrow down their risk limits. So after that, we will investment our a group member board to have the gap analysis for this company.
Thank you, Lindsay. So based on the analysis of current state and future state, we perform a gap analysis of it. So the first part will be the risk identification parts. The first is their internal environment. I think so currently they have a low bias before the merger of different companies. So, and also they only have two lines of defense. So in the future, we think they need to develop their independent roles in their risk management, and also they have to form a very strong risk learning culture inside their corporations. So the gap between these two, we think, is the lack of the management level risk committee, and also they do not have their internal auditors function very well. So the mitigation strategy will be, first they have to set 3 lines of defense, and second, they should clarify a very clear risk governance as well. And the second part will be the objective focus. So we currently think the compensation system of craft hands do not align with their risk objectives very well. And also their joint ventures and alliance activities do not correspond to their strategy plan as well. So in the future, we think that craft need to have a strategy to cover their operations, their reporting, and alliance activities as well. And also they need to have their mission statement to have risk appetite as well. So the gap between these two, we think, is the lack of the soft link into their strategy plans. So we recommend that the craft should develop an approach to embed their risk and their compensation systems together. And also for the third part, event identification. So currently there's no clear risk categorization of craft and hams. So in the future, we think that a key risk should be mentioned and preferred first, and then all the kind of risk categories should be given by sources, not just by results. The gap between these two, we think, is the current taxonomy is too granular and is also the loss of logic as well. So we strongly recommend that the craft should just perform the 10 ERM criteria to help them to categorize their risk events and their risk categories. The second part will be the quantification part. So currently, the risk assessment part, from their 10K, we just see that craft and hams, they pay attention to their market risk, which is the 10% of the fluctuation of their market price. But we think that is not enough. So in future, we think maybe craft should provide more detailed risk assessment rationale, and also they have to make their probability and their impact of the risk event under a very standardized scores. So the gap between these two, we think, is their lack of key risk indicators. So we hope that the craft will redesign their process of risk assessments. And the second part is the risk appetite. So currently, the craft in their risk program do not have only have a qualitative risk appetite statement. So in the future, we think their risk appetite should be quantitative enough and should be settled based on their company value and the risk exposure itself. So the gap between these two, we think, is because the craft just follows the causal framework, which provide a very qualitative way for them to face different risks. So the mitigation strategy, maybe first they have to set the risk limits, and then they have to judge and define the pain point and as well as the likelihood of different risk events. And also have to set individual risk scenarios as well. And the third part will be the value-based company model itself, which is the most important part. So currently, it's very obvious that craft do not have this kind of model. So in the future, we hope that this kind of model will be built. And also, it should contain the baseline company value. It should contain the individual risk exposure, and also it need to have the enterprise risk exposure as well. So the gap between these two is also that the craft is following the causal framework, which is not quantitative enough. So the mitigation strategy will be maybe the craft could use their finance statement to help to calculate their baseline company value, and also they could use interviews with their employees, with their management, to help to define their risk exposure and different risk scenarios. So for the third part is the decision-making part. So craft currently use one of the reduction ways for their risk response. Like they have a very flexible pricing strategies to cope with different market change. But we think that this is not enough because craft have to take into consideration that the price strategy itself could cause certain risk as well. So we think this kind of gap is that the frequent change of price strategy would result from certain risk, but it could also result in certain risk as well. So for the mitigation strategy, we strongly recommend that the craft should cooperate with exterior audit firm and also the consulting firm. And also, craft have used the sharing way of their risk response. They use the cross-currency swap contracts to hedge their foreign exchange rate fluctuation risk. We think that is a very good way, but we also think that is not good enough. So in the future, we want the craft to use more comprehensive financial tools like insurance, the futures, and options. So the gap between these two, we think that maybe craft will consider that they will be under more financial regulation if they have more cooperation with financial company, and also this kind of use of financial tools will cause more financial risk as well. So for the mitigation strategy, we hope that Craft can cooperate with attorneys and as well as very specialized financial company as well. So to conclude, we really recommend that value-based company value is company value model is very helpful for Craft because it provides a very intuitive perspective on the risk, impact, and company value for Craft. And also, it integrates the risk program into daily decision making and strategic plans as well. And only in that way, it can bring out the true value of the ERM program itself. And that will be the end of our presentation. Thank you so much.